Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Games podcast. Today we're going to be reviewing Oxenfree II Lost Signals. We're going to be talking about season 2 of The Last of Us, and are we ever going to see it ever? And we're also going to be talking about handheld gaming. Some news came out of the EU that might change handheld gaming forever. I'm your host, Patrick. Joining me, as always, my sweet dumpster boy, Cayman Darty. Cayman, how are you?
Oh boy.
Ooh,
Oh boy, Patrick.
how you doing?
Patrick, I'm doing good.
You're doing good.
I'm doing fine. Doing fine.
We're here, we're alive, we're talking about video games, which kind of brings me to my point of like, can it get better than this? Yes, it certainly can.
Can it? I guess
It certainly can.
It definitely could, yeah.
We have a lot of video games to talk about because this is the Spotlight Games podcast, where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod, or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on the show by tuning in as we record live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod. So be sure to follow us there so that you're notified when we go live, so you can be part of the conversation. Cayman, we've been back now several weeks. 3, I think we said off air.
Yeah, I think so.
And there's just, as I say in that little spiel, there is so much video game news to talk about and stuff to talk about. But I just want to take a second to say what a beautiful thing this is, and you are. You know what I mean?
Patrick, I've been so, as we all know at this point, I have a house now. So I'm moving into, I like to call it my yard dad era.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay. So I moved into my yard dad era, and so I've been doing a lot of yard work. I've been very particular about my yard, and I don't have a lawnmower, which makes it very difficult to be a yard dad without
scissors.
Yes, I took a lot of methamphetamine, and then it's actually funny. My wife, one of the first homes, like first houses she rented when she was in college.
Mm-hmm.
There was a dude who's like on crack, right? And he would come out and like trim his yard with scissors.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But either way, I borrowed a lawnmower from family, and we did a bunch of yard work this weekend.
Ooh.
And here's the thing about being Irish, Patrick.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how long I stay in the sun.
Yep.
I will get burnt, never get a fucking tan.
Yeah, no way.
I've spent so much time working on my yard in the blazing sun, getting I do all the things
down by those rays.
Right. We're in a wet bulb too. I'm still not 100% sure what it means, but I know it's very dangerous and global warming is real. Either way, still, which I guess, I don't know, like pros and cons is, well, I don't think there's any pros. The only con is I probably get melanoma. And I also don't get a tan.
Have you considered baby oil?
You know, I dated a girl, Patrick, whose mom used to lather up in Crisco and would go and literally bake in the sun. I think if you lather up in Crisco, you are literally deep frying your skin.
Correct. Well, especially in the year 2023.
Yeah, she got melanoma. So it's not funny. But also, you kind of ask for it if you lather up in Crisco and sit in the sun, and you're a ginger.
Hey, they didn't know better. Even
then, I still think they knew better.
They could drink and drive back then.
That is true. You know, when they took that shit away, communism.
Yeah. Fucking commies. I tell you what, brother.
Call me mommy.
We did call her the commie mommy famously. Came in since last week. I've been a busy boy. There's so, like, 2 weeks ago we had the discussion, are there too many video games? I still say yes.
Yeah.
Because I've not played Zelda in 2 weeks, and it's like I've barely touched Final Fantasy 16. I still got to get back to Diablo. Came in.
Yeah, me too.
But since we last spoke, I've beaten 2 video games.
Hit me,
short video games.
Mm-hmm.
But before I jump into mine, I want to know, is there anything that you have to report to both me and our sweet audience that you've been playing? Or have you just been so busy baking in the sun?
Yeah, there's a lot of bacon in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still chugging away at Final Fantasy 16. Man, I'm just really enjoying this game.
Are you still feeling like it's a front runner for game of the year for you?
I still think so.
Yeah.
I think the reason is like the pacing of this game is just really fucking good.
Sure.
And there's just moments in this game that I'm just absolutely blown away. I'm genuinely just like, this game scale wise is ludicrous.
Yeah.
And
It is so big.
the only game that I can think of that has ever made me feel like the same level of like, I am fighting something that is 100 stories high is just like God of War 3. I think is the only game I've ever played that has given me the same feeling of like, of this scale in combat.
Yeah.
And the music, I mean, we talked with our friend Nick. We talked about this with Nick about how incredible the score is.
God,
But
it's so good.
I think the thing is, there's games with really good scores that still aren't that good of games. I think it's how
Right.
you utilize a score within a game. And I think Final Fantasy 16 is one of those examples of like, the score is so important to elevate what you're doing at any given point. If it had
Yeah.
a mediocre score, I don't feel like I would be this high on it. But
Sure.
some of these huge set piece moments in these in this game are like, the score goes buck wild.
Yeah.
There was one moment where it was like a mixture of like electronica and metal
Oh,
during
yeah.
this fight. And I was like, am I playing fucking Devil May Cry right now? What is in a Final Fantasy game? What is
Pretty much.
happening?
Yes.
And it was awesome. So yeah, I've just been playing that. I do want to do a quick shout out though for all you fucking nerds out there.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Kai is now streaming on Hulu.
How about
So,
that?
you
You've been
know,
watching that.
during work, I have it on the background. Already
Nice.
40 episodes in. So
Wow.
yeah.
Churning and burning, brother.
Yeah, I love Dragon Ball, brother.
You know, Dragon Ball was a craze that I just completely missed.
That's a shame.
I've maybe, I know, and it's like I don't think it was like an active choice of mine. I just, as a kid, I guess the art style never like drew me in. I knew it existed. I just never like gave it a shot, and so I just completely missed it.
Were you a Toonami kid?
Sometimes,
okay.
I watched a lot of Jackie Chan Adventures.
Oh, you were a Saturday morning cartoon.
But I was mostly a Saturday morning cartoon kid.
Sure.
There were definitely some Toonami shit that I fucked with for sure. But yeah, big Saturday morning cartoon kid. And then like whatever would come on right after school on those same channels, like fucking like X-Men. I'd come home and X-Men would be on, that kind of shit. I watched a lot of X-Men.
A lot of X-Men. Probably a lot of X-Men Evolution. Probably remember that show.
X-Men Evolution, dude. That show is so fucking good. Fucking fire in the chat for X-Men Evolution. If you've never seen it, go. It's on Disney Plus right now. I rewatched it once it came out on Disney Plus. That show's so fucking good.
Ends on a cliffhanger.
It does.
It's a bummer cliffhanger.
Fucking bummer. Bummer cliffhanger. Speaking of the chat, we got Terry in the chat. Hey, gents, hope you're well. We are well. I hope you're well, Terry. Thanks for being here. Always love having you in the chat. Cayman, since, as I mentioned, so 2 games that I have finished, both small games, and both of the same series. That series is called Oxenfree. Did you ever play the original Oxenfree, Cayman?
I did not.
So Oxenfree is an indie game. Originally came out in 2016, 17, 18. I forget the exact year, but it's one of those 3. It's like a side-scrolling, very, very narrative focused. Like it's pretty light on the gameplay. And I think, so I started playing this game when it first came out on Switch years and years ago. And it just like it caught me at a time where the story didn't immediately pull me in. And since there's like very little gameplay to it, I just never really went back. But I've always heard it talked about at such a high kind of love by a lot of fans. So I was like, you know what? 2 is finally coming out. It's getting great reviews. I'm going to go play it. I was at my parents' last week for a couple days. And so I brought my Switch, booted it up, finished it in 2 nights. Because they're both pretty short. I think the first one actually is a little longer. The first one I want to say was like 7 to 10 hours. Second one's like 5 to 7 hours. But just like, so the first one really enjoyed. If you've not played it, I would definitely recommend it. But the second one I was really impressed with. I think I finished it just before we went live. And I think I would start by saying, if you haven't played the first one, you can play the second one, but it's going to mean a lot more if you play the first one. It doesn't seem, not to like spoil anything by any means, but like it seems like it's its own story, but then like it definitely pulls from the first one in certain ways. And I think it would benefit you to play the first one. If for no other reason than to kind of understand some of the like world building and things. But just a really lovely, like it's been a while since I played just like a light, simple, like really fucking good story game. Like didn't try to pepper in all these systems. And I mean, there are some systems like you have this radio, which is cool, that like there's some people that you can like communicate with throughout the game in various parts of this island. And then that's a walkie-talkie, and then there's a radio that you can kind of dial in and around places to like unlock shit. And like it leans in the supernatural a lot, so there's a lot of supernatural shit going on.
So you say it's a side scroller. Are we talking like what type of side scroll are we talking? We're not talking. Are we talking beat 'em up, Metroidvania? Are we talking
No.
What are we talking here?
The better description would be just a 2D game. But I mean, you are in ways side scrolling, but it's picture a map that it has a lot of kind of verticality to it at times, but it's a very simple, like usually they're like kind of set in and around the woods. So there's like paths, and you don't kind of walk out of the path. It's all, you're always on the path, and like it'll branch in various ways, and there's little things you can find, little collectibles and different ways that the story takes you. But the area of this game is like 3 times bigger, if I were to guess, than the first one. So it's just you kind of walking around exploring and like kind of following the narrative and kind of where it takes you, and uncovering cool shit as you go along. And you have a companion that both the lead character and the companion in this game knock it out of the park with their performances. Like Riley and Jacob love these characters. It's a game that does kind of, it seems like it would reward playing it again with more content. But to go back to the kind of age-old phrase on this podcast with there just being so many games, I don't know that I'm going to have the time to go back to it. I might just YouTube like what the different endings are and what kind of some of the different content is. But it did something. I think so often games, especially that are story driven and narrative driven and like dialogue driven, give you this sense of choice. And like, do your choices really matter, or is it just changing the color throughout? And this game did something for me that I thought was really interesting, where in multiple instances, it like changed my mind about what I thought about the characters in the world. Like, and that might, like, you might sit for a second and think like, that's not very special. But what I mean by it, I think to kind of provide more context, I think of Mass Effect. I think of a lot of Walking Dead games. And I feel like in a lot of those games, as you're playing it, you kind of immediately understand what you as a character think and believe and should do, and like what your moral compass is. Some of the games will let you be good, bad, anything in between. But it seems like, at least in my experience, I can only speak to my experience, that as you play these games, you kind of have this path that you're following. And it's like, oh, the good choice makes sense here. The bad choice makes sense here. The gruff choice makes sense here, kind of whatever those things are. But there were multiple times in this game where I'm like, I go into a conversation expecting to kind of lean one way, and the writing is just so good that I'm like, I'm really kind of at a crossroads here on whether or not I want to kind of change my character's kind of perspective. And that was fun. Like, that was just something I wasn't expecting from a game like this. When that kind of morality system usually feels very binary. So that I wanted to give a shout out to that too. But yeah, all in all, I would say like if you like that indie narrative focused, not a lot of gameplay, honestly, it would be a fucking great TV show type game. Oxenfree II, Lost Signals, I think you'll really, really enjoy. And if you've not played one, again, definitely go play one. They're both really affordable. I think one might be on one of the streaming services, whether it's PlayStation or Game Pass. If not, they're both like $20 tops.
Nice.
So yeah, highly recommend for sure. I don't know that this is gonna squeeze into like a top 3 or 4 game of the year for me, but it might be like 10 or 9 for sure. Like I definitely really enjoyed my time with it, and I was really impressed with Oxenfree II, Lost Signals. So you heard it here first, folks. Unless you heard it here somewhere else. Oxenfree II, Lost Signals. Buy now, play now.